Welcome to Classic Movie Salon. Today we're talking about Sunset Boulevard and monkeys. Joining me, as always, it's Colleen, it's Tachi, it's Matthew. We're all here. Matthew has a monkey. Tachi has a monkey. Colleen and I are monkey-free.
Yeah, you're only monkey-free because you've buried it.
Exactly, in a small, creepy coffin.
I'm not saying where my monkey went. You're not going to get me to talk.
Before the show started, we were talking about like when did the eccentric celebrity rich people got to have a monkey as a start, and Michael Jackson, that is where chimpanzee. But when did, so this was 1950. When did the pet monkey thing start?
Well, anybody can get a dog.
About 700 BC.
I guess in popular culture, he's going to go back to 700 BC. It was a very popular culture thing, and then.
Sorry, not 700 BC. 900 BC. Monkeys are mentioned in the story of the Queen of Sheba and Solomon. She brought monkeys and gave them to Solomon.
Yeah, Matthew would know.
Matthew.
That's who knows.
Of course, Matthew knows.
All I got is Michael Jackson and a fictional character in a movie we just watched.
Well, you did ask when Celebrity Monkey Stories started.
Hi, Joel.
Hey, Joel.
Hey, Joel. Thanks for stopping by. So the Sunset Boulevard, I watched it streaming on Netflix. Parts of it are funny, parts of it are not like haha funny, but dark sarcastic funny. And also, like when I took screenwriting classes, one thing they told you was do not write a screenplay about a struggling screenwriter. Don't write any kind of movie about anything that has to do with show business because you're here in Los Angeles being. And I have a prejudice, except for The Player and this movie, and probably a couple other ones, against showbiz-based stories. But this one sort of is and sort of isn't. It's kind of...
Oh, singing in the
and
rain.
that comes up in the movie about not writing about Hollywood too. So it's like the double entendre is built right into to the film, which is like, don't do this. He's doing, and it just contributes to the darkness, the layer upon layer of the darkness, which, are the contradictions. It's just fantastic. I wonder, is this the Joel? Which Joel is this?
Oh, there's so many Joels. We'll find out, we'll find out later.
There's a classic movie Joel.
Right. I'm going to guess it's probably not him. Back to the movie. So Sunset Boulevard is Billy Wilder co-wrote this with Charles Brackett, and then they brought in a guy named D.M. Marshman, who also did a little tweaking. I'm guessing all of you had seen this before, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, a few dozen times.
Yeah.
And the more you see it, the crazier you realize that this woman is. She's crazy as hell. And I mean, I've seen it. Obviously, they're like, yeah, she's crazy. But this time I was like, damn, she's crazy. And I don't know if it's because this, as many of our movies do, mirror a commentary on life because we never learn. But it just really, the craziness really stood out now. And this is the first time since this new era that I've watched the film. And she just seems even more crazy and more delusional.
Like full on needs a diagnosis, and
yeah,
there weren't a whole lot of diagnosing going on, but not so it was a new level of sadness for me too today, so I don't, just.
It also reminds me of a comedian I know, Paul Hopkins used to tell a joke about how he wanted to be so famous that no one told him the truth. And I think that is, that's what's going on. That it's not. Well, part of her craziness and part of her delusion. What's amazing about if you look under the hood of this and see all the connections, which I started to do, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Gloria Swanson, who plays Norma Desmond, was a silent film star, was directed by Cecil B. DeMille, did live in a big crazy house on Sunset Boulevard. And so to have someone, and was 51 at the time when they shot this thing. So to have that all happening, again, the weird, and to have, you know, Buster Keaton's in this movie. They all the real names they talk about were real names and are real names that some people recognize and other people are, who the hell's that guy? But to see it in 1951, it's so self-referential, and it's and I guess the part was turned down by a bunch of other people who did not want to play Norma. And there were a few other people up for Joe Gillis's role also.
But as is often the case, I mean, who could have played it like she? I
agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it had to be her, because only she could play it with that level of edge of sanity dash or slash crazy that she could have. It was actually fantastic, because it was it makes you believe that this is really the way she is. She played it so well that it's like, no, she has to be like this in real life for this to be this real. You know, although there are people that are like that. But, and I would guess that that level of delusion was even more now. Now, again, I don't live in Hollywood, so I don't necessarily, and nor am I a famous person. I'm just chopped liver. But I can guess that at, oh yeah, we're all famous to a few people. That's
there
right.
You go.
To the monkey, I'm famous. So,
Yeah, right.
You know, I would guess that especially at that time, there was, that's the edge of, you know, you're still at the new era, still arguably the very beginning of film and the very beginning of pictures. You know, you're talking about 1950 something. She's supposed to be coming out of the silent film era, which was the 20s. So you're only talking about maybe a 25 to 30 year gap in that place. And so this is a newfound level of fame. The fact that people can become famous off of being in movies or talkies or whatever is something that's still really new. So I can see somebody really reveling in the fact that you were famous for this time as a silent film star. Everything switched over to a new film standard, and then you're left out in the cold. But you long for that fame that you had before. There's so many ways now to really reinvent yourself in terms of the industry, that not that you wouldn't feel it, but you know, the industry has changed quite a bit. So, but back then, I can imagine this would be really hard for somebody like her.
Well, and for a woman, it's so particularly poignant, and still is, and it just adds yet another level of sadness to the story. I mean, I came away from this viewing this time thinking, I mean, it was almost the darkest noir I've ever seen without it being gangsters and guns. It's dark. I mean, you open on a street, you know, camera straight down on asphalt, those numbers that look like they were spray painted on crate. It's grim. It's grim. It's just so grim. And you're thinking, and in the narration you hear about Miss Havisham, you know, so it's just I mean, you also, only thing was missing from inside of the Sunset Boulevard address is that dust flying and cobwebs, and which would bring out the melodrama, you know, and kind of make it, then you're stealing from, you know, from that. So it's just, and where's Pip? So, but just incredibly, it's, I mean, I worship at the altar of Billy Wilder. So, I mean, you know, his camera is to me, and his writing and Bracket, and then again later with IAL Diamond, just the man, just, you know, that he could write in so many genre. You know, we did Stalag 17. We did another Billy Wilder already.
Right.
So if, you know, and then he did something like Sabrina and something like Get Hot. I mean, in and out of all this. So anyway, I'm rambling and running off, but
it's a good movie to ramble off about.
Yeah,
it is.
And there's still when I lived in Hollywood, someone would knock on my door on a semi-regular basis and ask if I wanted my address spray painted on the curb like that.
Really?
Swear to God.
Wow.
Swear to God.
Only in LA.
Did you say yes?
Oh no, because I'm like, no, I'm running this place. I don't care if anybody can find it. But see, the numbers on the bill. We're standing talking about putting the number down there where cars park next to the number that's on the side of the building, so you can see that this is not a good investment.
That struck me as odd, just as a particular aside of tangential, thing we go off on. Like, what? The mailman maybe could, but even then, is he really driving and looking down? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a perfect system, but having delivered flowers here in Los Angeles, sometimes it was helpful.
There you go.
Because sometimes the numbers are not obvious, which may have been the case at Norma's place, and it appears that way. But so when we meet Joe, he is down and out. Stuff's not going well with career, and he owes a chunk of change on the car. There are repo guys on his trail, and he pretty much completely accidentally ends up at Norma's place, running away from them. Hides the car, and she thinks he's the undertaker for the monkey. And that's where we start. Granted, we start with a voiceover and a pool and all that, but in terms of just the main story, we're starting with him being mistaken for the monkey undertaker. And
I mean, what a touch of genius. Of all the things to start with, that's the pure essence of lunacy, isn't it? Seriously asking somebody the monkey funeral director.
You sound like you're in a cave, Matthew.
Yeah.
But
is it better if I hold the microphone there and do a local radio DJ voice?
Oh, that's a nice microphone. Wow.
I have that mic.
Why is it not working? It worked all right last week and the week before and the week before.
It just sounded boomy. That's all.
Sound like Teddy Prendergrass with that velvet voice there. I mean,
hey.
Yeah, there you
Tonight
go.
on the Sunset Boulevard, we're talking about monkey love.
The show is getting very, very weird. It's a very weird show.
Did you change settings, Matthew?
We just went from monkey funeral to...
Well, we're talking about a coffin for a monkey and possibly the color of satin to choose. So there's no rules here, I don't think, with this movie.
No.
We took a left turn at Bizarro.
That's a setup of it. Is that you're never going to be on solid ground in Norman Desmond's world. It's not a place where reality or logic exists. And again, if you haven't watched the movie, we're going to spoil the crap out of it. So stop, go watch it. A couple of the ridiculous things that come out later on in the movie, big twisty twists, is her butler / chauffeur is her first husband. And he is just there, just keeping the crazy going. And you feel the tragedy of it all, because the idea that she is still in the delusion that all these people, writing letters to her. And what's interesting is Gloria Swanson, according to the stuff that I took a look at this morning on Wikipedia, which is always a good source, she was someone who was rumored to be getting like 10,000 letters a week at the height of her popularity.
Wow.
And also keep in mind, that's back when that was the way you communicated. So you could just tag them on Twitter and go, hey,
tweet here.
And also that was when autographs were still the thing, and now selfies are the thing.
Exactly.
And in reality, also Eric von Stroheim was also quite, so we have all this again, not so tongue in cheek, where, it was the pictures that got small. I was big, So,
but also really interesting that, like Tachi was pointing out, like at this point in history, like movies were the thing. This was not an industry. You couldn't just start a YouTube channel and build your own audience or any variable like that. So when Gloria Swanson and Max von Sydow are playing these roles, they are playing roles that mirror their careers, mirror who they are. And it's so odd for somebody who has kind of been out of the limelight for 20 years, which was the case for Gloria Swanson in making this. And then what's interesting is then she went on to like television and a bunch of other stuff. But for her to kind of come back, a silent film star, coming back, doing the talkies, and doing this just nutso role, just everything about this woman is over the top and dramatic, which I'm sure was a lot of fun, but it's still that weird, had to have been an odd thing to kind of not parody yourself, but you're fictionally playing a character that in reality is really, really close.
Very brave.
Absolutely. And you know, I think that the reason it works so well is because if you're coming from the silent era, you are going to be over the top anyway, because remember, she was talking about dialogue. We didn't need that. We had faces. And then she was like, I could do anything with my eyes. And really, you had to, because there was no dialogue except for the text on the couple of slides. You were not able to emote with words. It had to be nonverbal. And so that kind of translated into the over-the-topness of this, I think, because it really had that, the way she was acting really had a I came from silent feel to it, but it so worked for this. It so worked for this. One other thing, two other things actually. So with the monkey funeral, I don't know why I keep laughing at it. It's not funny, but the monkey funeral, I could have done without the monkey's
It's hilarious.
arm.
It's a monkey funeral. How can that?
It is hilarious.
Darkly hilarious.
It's hilarious. I'm feeling sorry for her now. She's on the edge, and so this monkey funeral, you know, I don't want to laugh at her. So I could have done without the monkey's arm like flinging down. Like, I didn't need to see that because we were going to see his face later anyway. So I think that was an unnecessary point in there. I didn't need to see the monkey's arm. And then my last point about this part is, with any delusion, there are people that help to keep the delusion going, and not to get political because we try to avoid the naughty step here. But we just finished France's election. We had ours, and you know, when you look at the level of delusion, there are always yes people around these individuals that have these visions of grandeur or think that they're more wonderful than they actually are, that keep the delusion going. And so when you look at that, Max acts as all those yes people for the political people that we have that keep them from thinking, maybe I'm not so wonderful, or maybe I'm not doing what needs to be done. But as long as there are people that confirm what you're doing and affirm you, it's going to happen, which is why she was allowed to live for so long in that house on Sunset Boulevard, delusional.
And
But Max is fascinating because he was kind of like, in lieu of no real treatment back then for this, I mean, other than shock treatments maybe, or institutionalization, it's just fascinating him taking care of her that way and protecting her and keeping her safe. And, you know, he perpetuates and ultimately it leads to a murder, but he kept her safe until this, you know, because there's always a breaking moment. But it just, we don't know how many years, it's never mentioned. He keeps it going, but it's a fascinating character because who does this? You know,
well, remember, he said that he discovered her when she was 16. This woman is 51. So this is 40 some odd, almost 40 some odd years of stroking her ego and making her think. So initially at the beginning, I'm sure she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah. But then the industry changes. And it's interesting, like you said, the fact that he gave up his career. He mentioned it was DeMille, it was G.W. Griffith, and he, who were, you know, the top 3 directors in Hollywood. Yet he gave all this up. And my thing is why? Why would you give all this up for her? I mean, okay, yeah, love.
I think he was probably in love, and it's that situation where, depending on what age he was at the time, that, like, you know, I saw this happen with someone I know here in Los Angeles, where they moved here from another place in a very short amount of time, got in a relationship, and then because they were, like quickly moved in together, all that. And then she started like sacrificing her acting career for his acting career because he had more training. And it's that like, I just love you so much that I will do whatever it takes to make you happy, and including throw away my own career. And maybe that was the case.
But that comes from a place, it just popped into my mind as Tachi and you, Joe, were both speaking, is that, there's a polarity there. There's a yin to a yang where one person is on the outside, obviously very unwell, but the other person is unwell, but in a different way. And somehow they keep this balance going where it's a low self-esteem.
Enabler.
Exactly. Codependent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it comes from another place of like, I'm not worthy. I'm not well. So it's a different illness. But they're perfect together, and they keep this. Like you said, Joe, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and they fit together. So somehow this cockeyed sort of coming together, it just worked. It worked, and it makes for a great story.
Anyway, Sunset Boulevard, the house is, the whole thing is inside Norman Desmond's head, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In a way, because she also has the money to sustain the delusion. Because I think that's like if she was in a one bedroom apartment in Hollywood with Max, then maybe it would be a different setup.
Oh, then the neighbors would have called, the cops would have come, and she's in an institution.
Right.
Exactly.
The money is the protection here, the privacy, and yeah, it buys you a lot of comfort. It buys you a lot of protection.
I'm interested to know about, again, I'm always thinking about these minute details that are not written out. I just think beyond the script. So she has all this money, but you see she's buying a lot of things. I'm always wondering, well, does she also have investments that allows her to continue to get this money? Because after a while, your money runs out.
But she mentioned oil, and she mentioned real estate downtown in Los Angeles. So, because she kept saying that oil just keeps pumping and pumping, just like
she did. You're right.
So yeah, so I think, and that's the thing. It's also from Max's point of view. And granted, I don't know how you go from first husband to ex-husband to like, I don't know how long this has all been going on. I guess forever. But it also reminds me, what was that movie with Anthony Hopkins when he plays the butler who's in love with the
Howard's End?
Howard's End, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another one that it kind of, that storyline, if you will, has happened before.
Yeah, there's no new story. It's just a new spin on it.
Yeah. And there's another thing as well with a butler called Max and death. Because when they met, it was murder.
Oh, Matthew Ward.
But and also that it's all right. His performance, Eric von Stroheim, was nominated for an Oscar. And again, this is somebody who was a silent movie director. Just the realities of this thing are bizarre. And
his acting was he another one, a survivor, turned into, from the silent era, turned into a lot of great acting performances.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he pivoted wonderfully. So it's interesting that these two, and I think in Billy's book, Conversations with Wilder, written by Cameron Crowe, they talked a lot about this movie, and it was difficult for Billy to convince him to take this role. I guess for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's just a kind of emasculating, submissive type part, but it obviously worked out very well. So
I think maybe that's what makes the Eric von Stroheim's performance so interesting, because he does come across, especially someone who, if you've ever had to tell a bunch of people what to do, i.e. direct, to go from that position to, so that's the archetype. That's who this guy is in real life. He's an Austrian guy who has done some directing, and he has a presence about him. And for him to then play against that presence, against what you would think, and not, I don't know, not overplay that, because that's where the bad acting would be for him to, you know, I don't know, not play the strength of who he is, or who I'm assuming he would be, being who he is. And it's a great contrast, and it really works. And she is, and it sort of amplifies how nutso she is, because he is so, like, you know, he is a robot, and she is just a flowing butterfly who's gets affected by a breeze.
She's delicate. She's very, I mean, she's so, I mean, we don't know it yet, but she's on the verge of, this is it. She's breaking down, you know, and we also don't know, we get to see him in this, he does become director. She's, you know, she's at the, he gets his one last shot at directing, but in a weird way.
Yeah, that's such a crazy, the closing of this thing is so crazy, because it's like, and also because he knows, like, the conversation that, and we're jumping to the end of the movie because this is the way this thing rolls. The cops are trying to figure out how to get her to A, come back to reality, and B, like, walk out of the house, because otherwise they're going to have to, you know, get a stretcher or whatever. This isn't going to go well. And for him to convince her, Max to convince her that the cameras are ready, and she's, you know, she hears cameras, she's reflecting the mirror on her eyes to light them up a little bit. And also she is true to this character. She does a lot of acting and overacting with her eyes.
Did anyone else think about, regarding acting, did anyone else find themselves thinking about William Holden's process through this movie? Because I kept, in scenes where some of the more intense scenes, like when she's rummaging his hair and saying, "Oh, darling," and this, and I'm thinking, how did he approach this role? You know, here, I'm thinking, how would William Holden feel about some older woman coming? And I'm going, what's going through his mind as he's got to do this? How did he come into, I don't know. It was, I maybe because I've seen it before, so I was doing a little dissection as I'm watching it and thinking about what, you know.
Well, interesting that you picked that up, because when I was reading up on the casting of this thing, Montgomery Clift was in the running for the role of Joe Gillis, and the reason that he didn't take it was he felt a little weird about the relationship part, because he was doing that in real life.
Imitating life, imitating art.
And that, again, according to Wikipedia, so you can pretty much say National Enquirer, but according to the story here is that, yeah, that's why.
I think that was in Billy's book too, in Billy Wilder's book, when he talked about the casting sounds from,
So that I'll consider that a double source, All the President's Men. So we don't need to triple source that. That is a solid story right there. So have Montgomery Clift pass because he didn't want to be seen as the guy who would be having a relationship with the middle-aged woman. Oh, so funny.
Totally off, but you know, when I was at my old university, Montgomery Clift's grandson came in for an interview.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. He was getting his PhD. No. Came in for an interview for a job. He was working on his PhD, was getting ready to graduate, and his mother, Montgomery Clift's daughter, was on. I don't know if you remember that show that was on PBS called To the Contrary. It was like a roundtable discussion show. So she was like one of the personalities on there, and he came in, and his last name is Clift too. We were joking, like, Montgomery Clift. He said, yeah. So just a bit of trivia and interesting.
and also in a Clash song, Wrong and Boyo off London.
Is it?
Calling. Yeah, the Montgomery Clift is a lyric they keep, and it's sort of like he's talking to someone else and saying, "That's Montgomery Clift, honey." It's like he's going out with someone younger who has no idea who Montgomery Clift is.
Wow.
That's gonna happen. The other running part of the story, and interesting in terms of William Holden's performance and character, is Joe kind of throws in the towel on screenwriting, and he is just like riding the gravy train. He's just enjoying living in a giant house, and he's kind of just given up. and we see a reader. I've had this experience. We've seen a reader who gives feedback on a script he wrote to her boss at the studio, he's a little bit palsy with. She doesn't know that he's standing in the room, and that's the first time they meet, and she was just saying it was pretty much a piece of garbage. And then they meet again on New Year's Eve when he leaves after they have a fight. And of course, and so this is the New Year's Eve party at Norma's place. You got Norma, you got Max, you got a looks like 8-10 piece little tiny orchestra, and Joe, and that's it. Nobody else is coming. And Joe's kind of surprised because he's wearing all of his nice clothes that she bought him and walking around like a little dress-up mannequin. And so he takes off after they have a fight, and he's hanging out with people he knows. He asked for a place to crash from his buddy, who just happens to be going out with this reader he had met earlier. And she does like one part of one of his scripts, which he's like, fine, take, like, he is so not a part of the whole thing. And he's trying to make a phone call to get his luggage and everything. Like, Max, pack me up and I'll send someone out to grab my suitcase so I can crash on this couch and get the hell out of Norma's place. And she has supposedly tried to kill herself, and the doctor's there. So he jumps in a cab and she pulls him right back in.
Well, then it seems like a part of him died when that happened, because he gets there and he kind of knows that this is it. I'm so stuck, and he sort of surrenders, and he and then that's why I think the reader starts calling him, and can't, and he's just, that's it, forget me, and don't try to call. It's just he doesn't see a way out anymore. So it just gets darker and darker.
It does, but
Linking back to another film we've reviewed, that's gaslighting, isn't it? What she did.
Yes. Yeah,
exactly. Gaslighting, exactly. I mean, I get how someone can be drawn in and get drawn into it, but at the same time, there's that whole thing, again, these life lessons that keep coming from these films. All money ain't good money. And, you just have to if it comes that easily, which he should have started to see at the very beginning as he was reading this god-awful script that she wrote in with crayon, basically, you should have seen that this was a no-win situation. So regardless of what you did, it probably would not have turned out well. But when you're that desperate, where you're like, all because of really his car, right? And his apartment, he needed a livelihood. He really obviously did not want to go back to Dayton, Ohio. Otherwise, he would have done that from the start. Well, you know what? Forget this. I am going back to Dayton and work at the newspaper I worked at before. He didn't want to do that. So he was willing to sell his soul, because in order for this to work, you have to be willing to sell your soul, and he was.
Yeah, he got tired of struggling first. He thought, well, I can put up with it. And then he's like, no, it's not even worth struggling. I don't even know.
The monkey funeral? That should have told him.
Well,
I mean, the damn monkey funeral.
No, what's a little crazy?
Like drop like this. Yeah.
It's LA. He probably had seen enough crazy for a while and thought, oh, okay, and then I can, and then, and at first glance, when all your money woes everybody gets a little dazzled at first. Yeah. And he did try to escape at New Year's Eve, and then, and okay, that didn't work. And now I'm stuck, but I don't want to go back to my broke days. And maybe he thought, I don't know, but he didn't even know I don't have money for a bus trip to get back. And so it was a lot of unbalance, let's say, going on even with him, where he's not making great decisions either. So he starts becoming on the verge of becoming codependent, like another Max.
Yeah, poor decisions beget more poor decisions. I get
that. Yeah, so you have kind of, what's it going to be, Joe?
He dug a hole and he kept trying to dig his way out.
You're going to sleep next to the monkey.
Exactly. In fact, he was deeper than the monkey.
Yeah. 6 feet deep in water.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Now I want to know how they did that shot, and I'm not sure if Billy described that in the book, because
From underwater.
well, yeah, to get William to
Bottom.
float like that, and the shot's so clear.
It's got to be a composite.
That's the thing, because
It has to be some kind of composite, because if you put a lens underwater, it doesn't make
it's
everything
not
else.
going to, right?
It's never going to focus on two places.
No,
And
it
it
just,
looked like it was actually encased in a box somehow, like a clear box. So you could,
exactly.
I was seeing some
Oh, that's
reflection
interesting.
from something else.
Did
So
you?
I was like, yeah, because it looked like
Okay.
you could, when you have the pure lens and then you have the lens on
Well,
top of
that's
a
it.
glass and you can
It
see, yeah,
Yeah, like it's looking out over something, and because it
yeah.
just looks too, and I
It was
just
just
kept.
too sharp, because you can't.
It,
It's for anything. You're underwater, and to get all that sharpness.
it gets
Yeah,
very.
you're right. It's interesting. I got to do some googling and look up how that shot was made, because it's a killer.
It's a killer shot, yeah.
Come on, kill
And
it.
but it adds another level of creepiness, both the above
Oh,
the and the down, and you're like seeing his face, and we all know, I think, because Matthew had brought it up a long time ago, when our early show days, where they had an alternate, I think, with a camera in a morgue freezer, and they pull the drawer out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so he put a camera on a rolling morgue drawer, and had them kind of as an alternate with Holden's at the morgue, and slide it out, and then that's your opening shot instead of the pool. There were like 3 openings, and they decided on this one. So I guess the cinematographer and all that, they rigged this up, and anyway, I rambled.
And also, if you count, well, a couple of things. The plot devices. While I was watching this, I rewatched part of it, and was snapping him waiting to get the phone at the party, because there's the 2 women who are just drunk and cackling on the phone, and that is the only phone. And I'm thinking, like, wow, that plot device is gone. We're never going to have that one again. And then the phone call, both the phone call from the reader, who ends up being the love interest, Betty, and then the phone call from the studio, which makes Norma think that it's about the script, and it's actually about them wanting to rent the car for another production. It has nothing to do with the script,
Right.
or Norma, or anything. And again, the other, in terms of everyone enabling, Cecil B. DeMille playing Cecil B. DeMille in this movie also enables her a little more. Like, he doesn't want to be the one that cracks her reality. And it seems like that is what is keeping her slightly sane. And once that's gone, then her, once the hope of, I'm going to return to pictures, I think even in her craziness, she understood that it, like, game over. We're all done. I'm going to jail for murder. And
Well, she made that her biggest role. That's the thing. I'm sure she's never played any role as big as she played that, because, yeah, although she was she was not playing with a full deck at that point, she knew that something was not right, and she was not going back to the house. So she's like, if I'm leaving, I need to leave in bloody style. And she made that, I mean, if you looked at the way she floated down the stairs, there was that realization of, okay, I may be going to jail, but this is my biggest role yet. And the fact is, she got what she wanted. She got the cameras.
Well, the tragedy was, it was the only thing she knew how to do. That was all she had in life, and so she had to. There was no other way, and the way she was able to manipulate people, she could get them to let her do it that way. She got DeMille to treat her nice. She got Joe to come running back after. That's why she did her wrists. That's why what she did to Max. That's what she did to everyone. And so even in this final moment, it was Norma Desmond, and they were kind of like, she's kooky, she's this, she, there's a monkeys in the yard, and someone floating in the pool, and yeah, okay, let's let her, and so it's like OJ,
and also the cool
like OJ in the Bronco.
Yeah, totally. And also the scene when she does visit the studio and everyone's like, that's Norma Desmond. Once the light's on her and everyone's like, that's Norma Desmond, that's Norma Desmond. And everyone it reminded me, I don't have anything close to a Norma Desmond story, but I worked on a sitcom for a week that never got picked up. And Phyllis Diller, Joan Rivers was supposed to play herself, and then Phyllis Diller ended up playing herself in place of Joan Rivers. But when she sat down and immediately was like she was holding court, because there's Michael J. Fox and Tracy Pollan, his wife, and everyone sort of just gathered around her because she's got stories for. You could have sat there and talked to her for 19 hours.
Yeah.
She had seen it all in a way that a lot of people will never see it, both because she's a woman and she was a comedian and an actor at a point where that wasn't the norm at all. It was definitely, it's always down. Say again?
Oh, the Norma.
This is where I was hoping for the movie. You know how when you're watching it and you hope for a different direction, but even though it's not. When she was in the studio, and all her old time friends came running around, I was kind of hoping like, oh wait, great, they're gonna find something she can do, and they're gonna think she'll get cast in a role for an older woman, and it just all comes to me, and I'm thinking like, yeah, she's not gonna, it's not gonna, and I'm like, wait a second, just you get all built up and thinking, no, they're rallying around, say, look, and DeMille's gonna think of something, and they'll make her an ambassador of the studio. I don't, just it kind of. This is when it's such a great movie. They've got you thinking. You're so entrenched in the story and the character. And these in a scene is so written so wonderfully well. So.
Did you ever see the British remake of it?
No.
It's Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, the day she left Downing Street for the last time, it was pure Norman Desmond. It was just the same. Drama. Yeah, the same delusional. Am I ready for my close-up now?
Really?
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's what everyone was watching it going, it's me, it's Norman Desmond, the Prime Minister, it's Norman Desmond, oh my goodness.
Joel in the comments is saying, looks like the pull shot was done by putting a mirror at the bottom of a water tank and shooting the reflection from above. That makes sense. That would be a way to but now I need to go look that up and see how they did it.
I know.
Yeah, Joel's got an authority.
Putting reading up on some of this, someone compared this to almost like a Phantom of the Opera thing, but with Norma Desmond being Dracula and Max. Let's see. Oh, with the concealed Eric, the character Eric from Phantom of the Opera. Because the one thing when you were saying that, Colleen, about her, well, two things about her, like maybe they will find something for her to do. What's interesting is to look at what Gloria Swanson's career did after this movie, which went on. She died in '83, and also 6 husbands, count them, 6.
Whoa!
Wow.
And it's all like D, and then she died.
That's a lot of men.
A lot of, yeah, one was per year, so that really so but also I wonder in terms of the character if Norma had to play someone her age, would that even register? Like, does she realize that she's now going to play, at that point in time, the grandmother?
You mean, did it register to Gloria Swanson?
Like, would Norma Desmond ever play a role that isn't,
Oh, good question.
She's the
probably not.
I would think
probably not. because she still has this delusion that she is a star, the glamorous star, and that it should be, all about her. And I think I could just see there being some sort of tiff on set if there's a younger starlet who comes in and it becomes all about her, because see, that's the problem with letting these people be delusional like that, because then even if they are able to revive their careers, there are only, unfortunately, certain things that they're going to be able to do. So at that time, especially.
Yeah. Whatever happened to Baby Jane? Another example of that.
That movie came to my mind as I'm watching as well, because it's a similar kind of parallel. I don't know, but I'm glad you mentioned that, Matthew, because that one for some reason popped into my head as well. Watching this of fading careers and how the system just spat out women, and then
continues to.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and continues to.
But just put in perspective, think that how old was Gloria when she made this? You say 51?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Meryl Streep, 67 today, and countless other people are still going well way past that. It's funny how in the film she's portrayed as this crazy old woman, and yet 51 today is like, well, you're only just starting.
Some they do,
51 is.
It's
Go ahead,
not.
Colleen.
Oh, I'm sorry. They do, but it's not as few. You see so many more women fade into the background, and then when they do come back, they say, "Well, she looks good for her age." You don't hear them saying that about Robert Redford. They just don't say anything, or Clint Eastwood, and they're just happy to get them to cast them in a movie because of the name.
But also the expectation, like, how are you supposed to look when you're 80? Like I'm 80. Like, how good am I supposed to look? Come on, take a knee.
But that's the thing. Because this is such a youth-obsessed industry.
Completely.
You're expected to be 80 and look 45. That's the expectation. And one thing that I did notice, I saw an article probably last year that compared women, and not just women, but particularly women in Hollywood, and what they looked like in 1940 something, like what somebody who was in their 40s in 1940 something looked like compared to now. Yeah. And I'm like, back looking at her, and sorry to say, but I'm like, you look like somebody's grandmother. And that's not what 51 looks like now, Obviously, there have been miracles made in terms of health, miracles made in terms of beauty and all of that, and an awful lot of plastic surgery. But at the same time,
but reality is reality.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is, yeah. There are changes that take place, and there's very little anyone can do. I mean, taking care of your skin, and we've learned things, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
Some people have courage.
Absolutely.
Oh, Lauren Bacall.
Who's this?
Lauren Bacall.
Yeah.
But and again, it's great that Lauren Bacall was Lauren Bacall. It's great that Meryl Streep is Meryl Streep. But for every Lauren Bacall and Meryl Streep, there is an army of women who no longer have careers at all, because that is not the way the economic model works. And that was the thing with watching Cecil B. DeMille, his response to having to kind of explain to Crazy that she's all done and the team's not getting back together. We'll see what we can do, and that kind of thing is, I am sure, in one form or another, going on all the time now, and will probably continue. Because I think what's interesting, and bring up Baby Jane, but the archetype of the character whose best days are behind them is inherently tragic. And because you want to watch a character who has hope that, the next chapter, whatever, this is going to be my year, all that stuff, as opposed to I'm going crazy and I'm going to shoot somebody, which is Norma's fate.
Well, I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say at that point, at that point in the industry, and like we were saying, even now, there really was no hope. So once you got past, I'm guessing even once you turned 40, you needed to decide what it was you were going to do because you were about to be washed up. So you either needed to get married to somebody or marry well, okay, to continue what you were doing. B, find something else to do and transition into because it doesn't bode well for you in Hollywood. And that was the accepted standard, and in a sense still kind of is the accepted standard.
But you had the interesting thing though, there are some actresses back in that time who had a cottage industry on playing older matronly women. They were older, Thelma Ritter, Ethel Barrymore, Lucille Watson.
And that's when they're called character actresses.
Gladys Cooper, yeah, I know. But they often were up above the, Ethel Barrymore was an above the line actress or, top of credit, and Gladys Cooper sometimes was as well. I think Thelma Ritter won an Oscar, but supporting, yeah, you're right. But in this story, all along the way, as far as her being washed up, as bad as that all is, and the aging process, but you still don't know she's, the beauty of the brilliance of the writing and the story is you still don't know she's capable of murder, and you don't see the madness escalating to that point. She's just daffy. She's just bitter. She's just a little out there. You don't, it's. Until it gets to the creepiness where she's looking in his bedroom, she doesn't know. When she calls Betty, you're kind of like, uh-oh, But yeah, I mean, the reality of they'll take a 40-year-old actress now and age her with prosthetics and makeup. Why not? For them it's better than getting someone who is 80 or 65 or just. No one wants that for some.
And again, some of it's economics.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm wondering what's going to happen though down the line, because we're looking at millennials right now being the largest generation. That doesn't mean that Gen Z won't be larger than they are, but right now they're the largest generation, so everything is geared towards them. But at some point they're going to age, so I'm wondering as
they don't
these
think
generations so. They don't think so.
Neither did we when we were their age, so take a knee, everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
we were all
just
invincible.
Lost generation. We were just the lost generation. But I'm wondering as this generation gets up in age, whether or not they're going to start to do things that put more emphasis on aging in the industry, if that makes any sense. Even though I get that it's all about youth, I'm wondering if there is a core of people that feel like, well, no, it's still about us because, the millennials are called the me generation. If they still maintain that me generation, are they then going to start to create a space or carve a niche for themselves at that age in the industry? So it'll be interesting to see whether or not they do that.
Yeah, but this is the Snapchat generation, isn't it? So they're used to having the phone in front of them with a filter on it. They'll just have that and it will show them their permanently young, glamorous face, whatever.
Joe snapping.
You're right.
Right, but I think the two things. I was just reading an interview with or an article about Martin Scorsese talking about how he feels that the art of cinema, as he knows it, thanks Joel, is dead. In that the communal experience of going to the theater will never go away because that is, whatever the economics of it, the reality is you got to get a bunch of people in a room together. Watching a movie, that is no longer the case, and it's no longer the behavior. So, and with everyone having a phone, everyone having everything on demand, and people usually watching movies with one or two or three or four other devices live while they're watching it, I think all of that comes into behavior, but I think it has less to do about a generation making a decision that there are going to be roles because that's a value, and I think it would be more the result of kind of what's happening now with all the economic models with filmmaking and television because of a Netflix and Amazon, all those. I think there's going to be even more fragmenting of places that are making, like Netflix and Amazon. Amazon just signed a first look deal with 3 indie studios. So once you have an online network who is signing first look deals with little indie production companies, which means like, here's a chunk of change, you talk to us first. That's an investment. So that the more that happens, the more the economic models change and happen. I think that is where the opportunities for multiple generations to work, because there are there's more opportunities, and B, the kinds of stories you can tell when you're not trying to appeal to the mainstream, like I'm blanking on Jill, what's her head's show on?
Jill Soloway, Transparent.
Yeah, Jill Soloway, Transparent. Yeah, like that is not going to happen. There's not a lot of other places that would have happened at that point.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think I just keep going back to what you say, Joe Wilson, because you're so wise and profound. Seriously.
I got to start cashing in on this wisdom, because it is not profitable at all.
I like quote you like several times a day. I'm like, as my Joe Wilson would say. So this is, as you keep saying, this is the best time in the history of media to be making something and to put yourself out there. There's never been a time where we've been able to have, forget about, the other things, where you have a studio that will even look at that, and not even a studio, but an entity, because studio kind of connotes an old way of thinking. So where you have an entity like Amazon or Netflix or any of these other independent maker studios, which now just became Disney fully, where you have all of these platform that will even consider or take a look at some of these things. Now, yeah, there still is a level of gatekeeping to it, so it's not a free-for-all like we want it to be.
Well, but we don't want it to be a free-for-all, because then that's YouTube.
Yeah, no. We don't want a free-for-all. I think some people want it to be a free-for-all. They're like, well, I have a camera and I make content. Why can't I have a show on? Because it's not good, my dear. So some of us do want it to be a free-for-all. So we do need some level of gatekeeping to make sure. But again, it's like you're gatekeeping from your standpoint, and I'm not expecting you to do it from somebody else's standpoint, because you can't. But then it goes back to the same old thing that we complain about Hollywood doing. So that's a different argument altogether. But it is a great time. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Right, Monkey? Yes.
The monkeys agree.
Yes.
Parts of this are really funny, but not like ha 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 comedy, woohoo funny, just kind of like, chuckle ha ha funny, or that kind of weird laugh when you think monkey coffin. That's not a slap on the knee kind of a laugh, that's a monkey coffin. Interesting. William Holden is a relatively big star by this point, and he is playing the classic screenwriter who's not doing well, and he, as William Holden playing this character, is rattling off all these other actors' names in a very when they're talking about who would do what in what movie, and that kind of thing. When he's the other part of the story that kind of it unlocks the murder is him and Betty, who's engaged to his best friend, are working on the script together. His best friend's out of town for a month, and these two are getting a little hotsy-totsy. And I love saying hotsy-totsy. That's another one you got to bring back. People do not. 23 skidoo and hotsy-totsy.
Hotsy-totsy's great.
They're getting a little hotsy-totsy, but they're trying to be nice about it. And then it gets to the point where she's got a letter that she's going to go hang out in Arizona, where he's working on some film that they're having problems with, and get married. And now she doesn't want to go. And then there's the big kiss. That is what cracks that actual real, not not a fantasy, well, partially fantasy maybe, but not Norma Desmond level of Fantasyland is what cracks Norma's Fantasyland. When like the way that Max has stayed for, like Colleen said, like 40 something years at this point, whatever it is, for him, for William, who is now, you know, I guess that's how she hires butlers. I don't know. She just,
I guess so.
She has an intimate relationship, and then
the replacement is coming. Joe's the replacement.
She divorces them and hires them as help. And William Holden's not going to be the help, and that's what drives her to destroy everything. But it's a great movie. And again, on a rewatch, it's one of those movies that, again, if you've seen this or you haven't seen it in a while, this is another one to watch again, because you will notice a whole bunch of stuff that you did not notice the first time you're watching this. Not in the least.
Buster Keaton, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Buster
I
Keaton.
don't think I ever knew Buster Keaton had. I didn't know he was there. I don't think
he's playing cards. He's one of the wax dummies.
Yeah, exactly. He's him, and there's two other silent movie stars who were in that scene with him.
Which scene?
The scene when they're all having like coffee with Norma at her place.
Playing bridge?
When they're playing cards.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. When they're playing bridge.
Oh, okay.
One of them is Buster Keaton, and I believe the other two are also silent film stars. So they're kind of or former silent film stars. So they're kind of playing themselves.
See, this is Billy Wilder. I'm sorry. I have to say it again. He's my Jedi master of the classic film era. He just is.
And also to have somebody, you know.
I've looked them up. The other ones are H.B. Warner, who was Christ in DeMille's King of Kings.
Wow.
And Anna Q. Nilsson, who was a Swedish silent star.
Interesting.
How great to have a middle initial Q.
I know, right?
I'm
changing my name to Joe Q. Wilson. Because that's how people remember it.
Joe Q. Wilson, yeah.
Joe Q. Wilson, that's the thing. So we're going to close up shop. All of us are highly recommending. Yes, any final thoughts on the Sunset Boulevard?
Monkey says thumbs up.
Yes, two thumbs up.
The monkeys
and
like
one
it.
Limp arm. Yes.
Colleen,
take good care of your monkey.
Yeah, take care of your monkey. If you do have a pet monkey, one thing I really would like.
You can't say that in England. I'm sorry.
You got to take care of your monkey. No, you take care of my monkey. No, I don't want to.
No.
We will be
Enjoy
back. Yeah, exactly. We'll be back next week watching another classic film that we haven't decided yet, and I blame myself. Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out. Matt, Marilyn, and Joel, who was here earlier. Bye, Matthew.
Yes.
Bye, Colleen.
Bye, Joe. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.